Thanks for joining us for another sponsored podcast by UiPath at SAP Sapphire 2019. Beautiful Orlando. Actually, if you can tell by the hair, I'm having a good hair day because it's not too humid.
It's not too humid. It's a little windy out there.
A little windy, but not too humid. But I was able to keep my hair straight, believe it or not. So we have Peter Villeroy, head of SAP practice at UiPath. And Peter, right before we hit record, we're having a great conversation about, trading war stories on setting up new SAP landscapes.
Right.
I can tell you how many times I've had conversations with executives that were painful because they had some business initiative that needed to be done as soon as possible to meet the financial demands or KPI demands of their business. And I had to give them the bad news. You know what? It's going to take me 6 months to give you another landscape. And a lot of that is, some of it is procurement, and we can solve that by virtualization. But some of it is just repetitive processes that we have to do to just set up the landscape. If you're in a pharmaceutical environment, you have to go through validation, testing, etc. of the environment before you turn it over, so that you can prove to auditors that the environment that you built the application on is the same as your QA environment, same as your test, and same as production. It would seem that RPA, robotic process automation, should help with that challenge, given there's a lack of some APIs for at least the testing part of that process.
Absolutely, and that's one of the places where RPA shines, right? Is those processes that are heavily manual and yet repetitive, right? One of them being standing up an SAP landscape. You can easily program a robot to do that, because these are not only, this is like classic RPA, these are not only very well defined processes, right, but highly repeatable and reusable, and so the ROI comes out very quickly there. But I like how you mentioned that there's a need to test and validate something, right? Because one of the exciting mature applications of RPA right now is in the test automation from a regression test standpoint or UIT standpoint, right? Is find out about a system that's undergone a change or may have experienced a migration. How does that system stand up to how it was beforehand? And the application of RPA together with process mining and the use of reusable components across the bottom allows you to automate that kind of a regression test end to end in ways that are unthinkable from traditional test automation frameworks.
So a lot of the challenge in standing up some of these environments is kind of that process. Whether the process is documented, undocumented, my experience, having a documented process helps, but for robotics, the process is never documented well enough for me to automatically just implement that process. Talk to me a little bit about how UiPath helps with that process discovery.
Sure. So we have things that work today, and we have things on the roadmap, right? Mm-hmm. But what certainly is interesting that we have is part of our AI fabric is the process understanding features of our robots, right? So we can use recorders to understand what humans are doing on their machines, and build process definitions out of that intelligently by applying what is already commonly referred to as process mining. Applying that not only to the logs of the database underlying an ERP system, but applying it to logs that we can create by monitoring human interaction in any UI. Path can interact with all of the UIs that your IT organization is using, whether it's command line or the SAP interfaces, SAP GUI, Fiori, but also like mainframes and email clients and all across the board, right? Like, of course we can automate that. And then when it comes to fuzzy processes where they think, well, I do this differently every time I do it,
right?
That's a question of observation, recording, and then intelligent pattern recognition. And then they're surprised. I mean, the bottom line is, how do you know what you're going to do?
Well, that's amazing. We're creating, in essence, virtual APIs for systems that don't have APIs. Like, there's no API to a green screen. I can do, I've done in the past screen scrapes and tried to automate the process of configuring, let's say, a Cisco switch. And it just, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, it'll throw an error that my script can't handle. With robotics API, RPA, with RPA, I would assume that it can handle error exception.
That's correct. So we have a very powerful multi-layered exception handling methodology at UiPath. So there are exceptions that you know are going to be a possibility, and there are ones that you don't expect. And you know, our global exception handler that became mainstream middle of last year, I believe, really helps to address those unknowns and to collect information that could be used later for machine learning processes and improvement. So.
All right, so this again is Sapphire, SAP Sapphire. And we could not have a conversation in SAP Sapphire unless we talked about SAP HANA.
Absolutely.
So 2025 is coming up. How does UiPath, what's the story around HANA for UiPath? Like every SAP partner has to have a HANA story.
You know, it's really, I lead the SAP practice, and part of my mandate is to discover what the pain points are of the SAP community, given my background in this space and my background in RPA, and relieve those pain points. And there is undeniably one huge elephant in the room at Sapphire, and that is all of these customers are being shown what they can do on S4HANA, and they want to go there, but it's hard to get there.
It's hard to get there.
And so that was one thing that we put a strategic emphasis on at UiPath, is we wanted to address and remove that pain. And so we've partnered together with some very impressive SIs to bring SAP customers onto S4HANA in a way that exploits digital labor at every step of the way. And perhaps the most impressive and most unique application of RPA in that space is, again, the test automation at the end of the migration, where customers are spending so much time to define their processes, find data that's applicable to that, either scripted with a classic test automation scripting, or handed to a large number of low-cost individuals to execute the tests. And we're coming in and saying, look, we can find the process definitions, we can extract the data, and we can build test cases and execute them with robots in a fully automated fashion. And that kind of thing was unheard of in just the near past.
Yeah, I've managed DR tests, I've managed migrations, not even to HANA, just migrations from one storage array to another in validated environments in pharmaceuticals. And test is by far well, there's a lot of pains, it's painful, but test is a big problem. You know, you're getting people up at an undeterminable point, either in the night or in the morning, to perform the testing, and then the testing itself is inconsistent. We're arguing about what's a successful test and what's not a successful test. So, you know, this kind of takes the guesswork out of test for any migration, whether it's going from R3 to S4 or just going from R3 to R3 on a different platform.
It's true. And you think about part of the reason why that's so painful is who is building those process definitions and who's deciding about the data sets to be testing? It's the SMEs and the process owners. And these are expensive individuals, and pulling them from their daily work to do this for weeks on end in preparation to test is highly disruptive to the business, and that causes a lot of the pain at the onset to validating an S4HANA system before you go live. Right, so we're able to address a major pain point in that regard. Migrating to HANA is just one of the examples there being the validation step.
So Peter, I really appreciate you taking out the time in your busy schedule. I know there's tons of customers wanting your time. It's SAP. RPA is a big, whether it's UiPath, Leonardo, or some other competitive solution, RPA is a big topic here at the conference. We really appreciate you taking out the time.
Thanks so much, Keith.
If you want to learn more about UiPath, you can visit them on the web, uipath.com. If you want to learn more about the CTO Advisor, you can visit our website, thectoadvisor.com. Subscribe to the videos, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube. Talk to you next CTO Dose.